What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Rad Builds. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a Spider-Man mask from the new movie. I've actually made a few in the past before, but it's a brand new day, so I'm going to make a new one, and this is it right here.
It's a brand new day.
If you want to follow along and make one yourself, I attach every template I use in the description down below. Most of them are free, although there is one that isn't, but there's an alternative, but I'll get to all that later. For now, let's just get to the build. I started out by printing my facial pattern. You can change the scale like this, and use this equation to figure out what percentage you need. But as it is scaled to my head, I'm just going to print it at 100%. I sliced off the overhang and then taped them together. I'm going to cut it out of Lego box cardboard, which is about 1/16 of an inch. You can also use some other thin cardboard, like cereal boxes. I used a glue stick to attach the template to the cardboard and then began cutting it out. Cut all the way through on these dark lines. And then on these dashed lines, cut about halfway through to score through the cardboard. It makes it easier to bend. I scored everything, and don't worry if the paper falls off because I removed the rest anyway. You might be wondering, why are you making a face shell? Tom Holland doesn't wear a face shell. Well, actually he does, and I'll show you why. So here's with the face shell. And then here's it without. I don't know about you guys, but I think the face shell looks better. I bent along the score lines and then used masking tape to secure the edges together. I did the same on the other side. And there is a small gap that I'm going to fill with a thin strip of cardboard. You can adjust this however you need to fit your head size. I test fit it, and it didn't fit. So I drew a line where I wanted to cut, and then cut another strip to fill that gap. I also cut a bit off the back because I didn't like the way it felt. Another test fit. Let's go. This time it's good to go. I placed super glue in the cracks and then removed the tape. I'm going to go ahead and print out the lens pattern. You can leave this at 100% because the lenses are small enough that the size doesn't really matter. I cut the lenses out and then cut along this dotted line here around the edge. What we want are these babies here. See how the lenses don't perfectly fit? We're going to fix that with these. I tape them on and then mark the differences. I remove the extras from the shell and then cut out the paper differences from cardboard and then attach them on. It looks great, but it is still a little squishy, so we're going to fix that with resin. First, I glued on supports so it doesn't deform while drying. I'm applying the resin in my garage for good ventilation and wearing gloves and a respirator. I'm going to be using Bondo fiberglass resin. Here's the hardener, and about 10 drops of it is equal to 1 fluid ounce of resin, and I measured that out in this cup here. And then here's the fiberglass. I cut off strips of it and then poured the resin. Then I added the drops of hardener and then mixed them together for about 30 seconds. I applied a coat on the inside and then placed the fiberglass strips over top. Then I added another coat of resin. I also added a coat of resin to the outside, but no fiberglass this time. The resin takes about 2 hours to dry, and when it does, it is super hard. I sanded the outside with 60 grit sandpaper. Then I removed the supports and sanded around the edges. Afterwards, I added superglue to the outside. It's not quite as strong as resin, but it is much smoother and easier to control. Now I don't know about you, but I like breathing. So I marked out holes on the forehead and mouth and then drilled in the holes. Afterwards, I spackled the entire outside and really got in those cracks and made them smoother. The spackling grew through the holes I just drilled, so I immediately poked them out with a pencil because they looked disgusting. I then sanded the entire outside. Then added a couple of coats of gray Rust-Oleum automotive filler primer. The next step is making the lenses. I glued the template onto some poster board, and then cut those pieces out. And then on those pieces I cut along the dash lines. And note, each piece has a number on it. I placed in painter's tape inside the shell. And this gives the lenses the curvature they have when you glue them together. The red numbers tell you where the pieces go, and they also tell you the order to glue them on in. And when you glue them on, make sure you match the pieces to the dark line and not the cut dash line. This allows for overlay between the pieces. There is a rim around each lens, so I cut strips of 2mm foam and glued them around the edges. With the new rims, there is a little resistance when I place them through, so I took care of that with some sandpaper. I then went on to sand the entire shell, starting with 180 grit, then 220, 320, and finally 400. I probably didn't need to go that high, but it gave it a nice glossy shine, which I liked. On the inside, I placed foam to make the shell more comfortable for when I watch the movie. Test fit. Oh man, that feels wonderful. Back to the lenses, or goggles apparently. I added a coat of resin, but was very careful not to drown the details. When that was dry, I gave them both a coat of filler primer. Then I lightly sanded them. I added some spackling to fill the cracks, and then used a small chisel to scrape away the excess spackling. Then I followed that with some more sanding. I gave it another coat of primer, then followed that with a black semi-gloss protective enamel. Here they are. Now time to add the white. I'm going to be using this PC dust filter mesh, and I attached a link in the description. I cut 2 pieces and taped them temporarily, but then hot glued them on. I did the same for the other one. I'm going to be using magnets to attach them to the face shell, and I'll place them here, 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 and here. See? Next, I made little cardboard armatures with magnets. They will get placed like this. I glued them in, and testing the strength. Oh, yep, man, that was satisfying. Fabric time. On Etsy I found this beautiful pattern by ATX Spider. It was only 10 bucks and I linked it in the description below. I checked the instructions, 22-inch head, and print with Adobe Acrobat Reader. So I downloaded Adobe Acrobat Reader, and I left instructions in the description if you guys want to do the same. On Adobe, I set it to poster size. See how this splits the big image between the pages? Then I upped the scale to 105% because I'm using a face shell. Then I set the overlap to 0, and then print. Pause. Remember when I said there was a free alternative? I also attached this free design created by Alex Serva MX based on the No Way Home mask. You can print it the exact same on Adobe Acrobat Reader. Just know the webbing is a little bit different, and I'm not sure about sizing, so you might want to make a mock-up first. I actually did that anyway just to see how it looked. I taped up the 105% pattern, and then cut out each piece. Last time I used this more nylon material, and it stretches okay, and looks alright as you can see on the old mask. But this time I'm going to use this more spandex material from Michaels. It stretches perfectly, and I left a link to it below. I laid out the pattern, and then cut a large section with a very sharp blade. I pinned the pattern to the material, and then cut away. Now we're going to do the red bricks like you can see here and on the real mask. I laid the pieces on a clear board and then placed them on a few lights. When the other lights are off, the bricks from the pattern illuminate through the material. I traced over everything with a red Sharpie. I actually tested a few different types of markers, and the Sharpie looked and it stretched the best. If you're using the other pattern, you won't actually have the brick, so you'll have to freehand it. But it's not too hard, and I did so in a few places, and it turned out great. When I finished with the red, I traced the black web lines with a skinny black Sharpie. A few notes. I only drew up to the second line here on the outside, and the zipper will cover the rest. And then on the base I drew more curved lines instead of straight ones, like those on the pattern. I'm going to stick the fabric on these Cricut sticker rolls. You don't need a Cricut at all for this, but the reason is for these rolls, we don't want the fabric to stretch while we're applying the web lines. So we're going to stick it to the back and it won't allow the fabric to move. I also taped them onto some cardboard to act as strong bases. I'm going to use Tulip Black Puff Paint for the web lines. I couldn't really get straight consistent web lines from the bottle, so I squeezed it all into a frosting bag. And then I'm going to use a size 3 tip. After testing this method, it worked much better, and when I was ready, I moved on to drawing the actual lines. I let them dry overnight with a fan on to give some airflow in my sister's room. She won't mind. The next day, they look absolutely splendid, so I removed the back supports. I'm going to use a black invisible zipper on the back. I pinned it on with the outsides facing each other, and then sewed right up to the teeth. Testing. Oh, yep, that looks great. Make sure to sew everything inside out, and you'll want to sew right up to those black web lines, make sure they match perfectly. When I finished, I flipped it back right side out, and then I cut the eye holes. And then, Avengers Assemble. Man, this thing turned out great. You guys gotta make one.
It's a brand new day.
If you do make the mask, you can message me on Twitter or Instagram at radbuild3000. I would love to see your work. Well, what do you guys think? If you think it turned out great, make sure to leave a like. If you think I could have done something better, Leave a comment down below of what I should have done differently. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all my new video releases. But that's all for today, folks. I'll see you next time on Rad Builds. If you haven't already, you should check out some of my older videos. I recently released a video of me building the World Cup trophy. Are we not still all reminiscing on that World Cup? I also have videos on all sorts of other cool things, and you should check those out too. Alrighty, that's Spidey business calling. See you later.